I had to download Zoom onto them to make it work.
Are you still sitting there? Marty, if you just let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
Good evening. I'm going to call the City Council for the City of Missoula to order. It's August 8th, 2022. And if you'd please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, liberty. Thank you. And Marty, if you could do a roll call and also go through how people can join our meeting, which we are still having hybrid meetings, and so they can join virtually.
All righty, let's start with the roll call first, and then I'll go through the join procedures. Anderson. Stacy is absent. Becerra.
Present.
Carlino.
Present.
Santos.
Here.
Hess.
Present.
Jones.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Savage. Jennifer Savage is absent. Amber Sherrill.
Present.
Sandra Sika.
Present.
Heidi West.
Present.
It looks like we have the mayor is absent and 2 council members are absent this evening.
Thank you. And then did you want to just go through some of the information for how people can join virtually for public comment?
I'd be delighted. Hang on, let me share my screen here. Okay, folks, the way to join our meetings is to go to the city's main homepage. You can use your favorite search engine on the web and look up the city of Missoula, and our search results be right there on the top of your page. Right here in the middle of the page is a meetings button, and you click that to get to all of the city's public meetings, boards, commissions, city council, committee meetings. It's a portal for all of them. We have instructions up here at the top of the agenda that I'm going to walk you through right now. What you'll do is come down here to a meeting that you want to join. So tonight's city council meeting is here on Monday at 6 o'clock. You click on that meeting and it'll open up a little dialog box here. You have some options. You can select HTML or PDF to open up our agenda. I'm going to select HTML here. That'll bring up a video of the meeting as well as all of our documents here. And right up here at the top of the agenda, it says attend by computer, and you can click join the meeting if you have a computer. Now, if you don't do computers, you can also join us by phone. And we have some phone numbers here, so I'm going to read them off. Folks who are using a cell phone can dial 1-253-215-8782. And landline users, we have an 800 number that you can dial in. It's 1-888-475-4499. And when the phone gets answered by Zoom, it'll ask you for webinar ID. And this is the number that you'll enter in. You'll enter in 871-1768-5875. And generally, it does not ask for a password because we don't password protect the meetings. And once you arrive in the meeting, you can press 9 to be recognized for public comment. So we will call on you when the time comes for public comment. And *6 will mute and unmute your phone. If you just want to watch our meeting and don't want to join us or participate, we do stream live on our website. That link is on the agenda. You can also catch us over on our YouTube channel. And for years and years and years and years, Missoula Community Access Television has been broadcasting our meetings live on Spectrum Cable Channel 190. Thanks.
Thank you, Marty. We have minutes from July 18th, 2022 and July 25th, 2022. Were there any changes to those minutes? Check online, seeing no raised hands. Those will stand approved. And then we will take public comment on items that are not on the agenda. So if anyone wants to provide public comment on items not on the agenda, please come up to the microphone. State your name, please, for the record. And we ask that you try not to go over 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm David Evernham. Thanks for being on council. Marty, thanks for doing all your hard work. Missoula City County has outstanding law enforcement. Karis Park turned out beautifully, excellent design and craftsmanship. John Ingen got us the water company. Brilliant move, John. Donna Gockler has expanded parks and rec, open space and trails to world class. Thanks. We live in a wonderful town. City and county officials, employees, thanks. Last time I was here, I was yammering on about the federal building, 200 East Broadway. Has anybody come up with any operating costs, yearly operating costs on that? Has the federal government disclosed that?
So we don't do a question back and forth. it's
Okay,
just public
sorry, I
comment,
apologize.
But please go ahead with your
Okay,
comments.
the
Appreciate that.
Subject today is realty. Thanks for being on the city council. I couldn't do it. I can't run computers. I'm one of those kind of people that hasn't gotten it quite yet. The acquisition of the federal building, 200 East Broadway, is a major realty deal. How can we as a city go through with this deal without full disclosure of all aspects of the building? How can we plan to pay for utilities without knowing how much it will cost? This is not poor planning. This is no planning. I've written a letter to building manager Dan Hill, Governmental Services Administration, notarized by Clerk of Court Office, Missoula County Courthouse. Mailed July 27th, 2022, certified mailed at the post office. Here's a copy of it. He received it the 29th, haven't heard back from him since. In the federal building, there's little air conditioning. It's just very hot in there. To not have full disclosure is like me buying a house for $600,000 and having the realtor say, we can't tell you how much the taxes are until you buy the house. I've been asking for this information for 8 months from the county, from GSA and the city. Nobody has it. It is unethical, illegal, and sets up the owner for a lawsuit. How much will it cost? We, the taxpayers of Missoula, to operate this. How much will it cost we, the taxpayers of Missoula, to operate this building and renovate it? Nobody knows. No planning, especially for the carbon footprint. There's no parking, very little air conditioning, and it'll be a nightmare to work on. I know I remodeled the county courthouse as the foreman for 5 years. The place is full of asbestos. Anyway, I guess my whole point is the Constitution of Montana is being violated here. And my last talk a couple of weeks ago was about that. Article 2, Section 9, right to know laws have been violated. And we're a sovereign state, so the federal government has no jurisdiction here. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening, and thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Everingham. Anyone else, public comment on items not on the agenda?
Excuse me, Bob Moore. I'm having some dental work, so I may not, you may have a hard time hearing me. I got a copy of this chart, I'll call it a chart. I guess to convince the citizens about the good work of the MRA and the good work of the city council. I personally got very, very upset when I actually went over this document. I'm going to assume that all of y'all have seen this MRA explaining what TIP is. I think I know what TIP is, but if I read this, I obviously don't. Couple of questions I'd like, or just statements to make out. They gave 6 or 7 examples of the fantastic work of the MRA and the city council. I would like to ask why the example of the shopping center that's going to cost us way over $10 million when it's paid off. Just can't imagine how you would not have that as an example. Nothing like that is on here. Nothing about the millions given to the hotels, 2 hotels that I know about. Maybe there's more. Millions to the bank. Millions for the bridge across Reserve. That's a lot of money. And this is a false document to not provide a some of these real examples where the taxpayers have spent a fortune. And y'all elect y'all MRA, whoever it is, to do this. You talk about blight. I don't know how in the good Lord's name the shopping center was determined to have blight. Another point on the shopping center, 4 roundabouts, 4 in half a mile. You think that's a good way to spend taxpayers' money? In the thousands limits, there was a laundry mat attached to a gas convenience store. And we put I think it's $50,000 to help him change from a excuse me, to that was the other one. Starbucks, gave Starbucks. This chart right here talks about you're helping people who need things. And the project wouldn't be done unless the taxpayers gave people thousands or hundreds of thousands or tens of millions of dollars. It wouldn't be provided. I'll tell you, Starbucks could afford it. I'll bet Starbucks could afford it. Probably Southmark Bank could afford it. Probably the Lambros family, who always are, and I'm sure they've done a lot for the county, but and city, but we don't need to be helping them.
And Mr. Moore, we're running on 4 minutes now. If you could wrap it
Okay,
up.
that's all.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Just keep up the good work, spend all the money.
Anyone else that wanted to provide public comment on items not on the agenda? If so, come on up, just state your name and try and keep it to 3 minutes per person.
Ivory West.
And I'm Sylvan West.
So I'm in Blue Mountain 4-H and FFA.
I'm also in Blue Mountain 4-H.
We would like to invite you to the 4-H and FFA auction, which is this Saturday, August 13th at the fairgrounds.
8 a.m.
Yeah, 8 a.m.
So I'm selling laying pen of chickens, which is just 3 chickens. And the type of chickens I'm selling are blue laced red Wyandottes.
I'm selling a dapple boar goat named Apple. And if you don't want it, well, if you just want to support kids, you can also donate to after the auction if you don't want to buy a full animal. Or if you can't make it to the auction, you can get a proxy bidder to bid for you. We have some postcards that we'll hand out for more information. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, anyone else that wanted to provide public comment on items not on the agenda? Why don't you come on up? We got the spelling of your name last time, so
Correct. Thank
we're
you.
good.
My name is, oh, wait. My name is Akhilesh Bimler, and I know this isn't a back and forth question and answer period, but I was wondering if I missed something about the printed agendas, because there wasn't one today. And if it's possible to have one today, it would be very helpful for me, perhaps other people as well. I know there's very few members of the public here today, and yet still was there no agendas printed today?
You know,
To me-
I am not sure. I think that was an oversight.
I see.
Okay.
would it perhaps be possible to print an agenda for
Uh,
today? Perhaps.
Ms. Rabine, is it possible to print any agendas or? I'm sorry, I think we're in the middle of the meeting, so I don't think we can stop and do that, but I will announce clearly everything as we go through it.
I would-
Alrighty.
And I can show it it was an honest arts oversight this week. We have a staff member out of town, but I can put the agenda up on the screen.
Understood. I just have to say that it's very difficult for me to, and probably many other members of the public, to access online only aspects of the agenda. And if you would please have agendas printed for members of the public, for the public meetings, it would be extremely helpful for the engagement of the public, please. There's a lot more I could say, but I'm just going to stick to that one item for now.
Okay, thank you. And
Thanks.
my apologies. I think that was an oversight. We always have them normally, but they'll be back next week. Okay. Anyone else in the audience that wanted to provide public comment on items not on the agenda? I'll check our virtual attendees. We do have a hand up. Mr. Hunt. If you can unmute yourself, you should be able to provide public comment on items not on the agenda. And if you can keep it to 3 minutes, please.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Kevin Hunt. I live in the Rattlesnake. I'm in Ward 1. And I just want to briefly comment for the public and the record on the meeting of August 3 of the Housing, gotta get the full title here, Housing Redevelopment and Community Programs Committee. And when it's time for the minutes, I will be commenting on those as well. I just would like to say that during that meeting, there was very helpful testimony from a citizen by the name of Bergman, and she provided a lot of great information. And during her presentation, she did ask, and she made a request that any members of the committee and council who themselves own or operate short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and the like, if they would be so kind as to disclose that. And I endorsed her entirety of her remarks. No one did so. And then I realized you didn't have anything formal before you, and I don't want to get into any discussion of legal requirements, which I think is a ridiculous standard for ethics, to only do what you're legally required to do. But I want to point out that no one made any disclosures, and didn't take long to find advertisements nationwide for 2 Airbnbs that are operated, owned by Counselor Savage, who's not present tonight. One was listed at about, I think it was $255 a night, and the other was $109 per night. One of them had garnered 809 reviews. I next wrote a letter to the city council, again, requesting this disclosure, although, as I noted, it's a little superfluous at this point. And I thank the council president for responding. I wish that Ms. Savage would respond on her own behalf. I'd like to make the request now that any of you who failed to make that disclosure, who should make that disclosure, because it's the right thing to do. It's part of our right to know. When you have, when you're discussing things such as doubling or tripling the registration fee, and when Councilor Savage herself, during her comments, urged that no such policy be adopted because of the expense it would that would be incurred by the operators of these Airbnbs, I think that's unethical. And I would like to ask that if any of you are in the same position, that you please come clean tonight and make that disclosure. I don't understand what's behind not making the disclosure when it's a simple thing. If there's something to hide, I don't know what it could possibly be. But this greatly undermines public confidence in all of you, including those who haven't done anything to warrant not having confidence in them. But one person does this, and it undermines the entire public's confidence in you. And I'm doing my very best to disabuse myself of all the biases and prejudices I've built up in the last 3 years. And I'm doing everything I can to give the benefit of the doubt to everybody. But I'm very disappointed that I did not get a response from Councillor Savage to my letter. She's absent tonight. And when we get to the minutes of that meeting, and I will have more to say about that, because that request is not in the minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move forward then. Marty, if you could go through the committee schedule for this week, appreciate it.
Yes, just a moment. All right, I note that we have to make a change to our committee schedule because our committee meetings this week are going to be held via Microsoft Teams rather than Zoom webinar. So I will make that change at the very top of the agenda this Wednesday, August 10th. Here is our committee schedule for the 10th. Budget and Finance Committee will meet at 9 a.m. They will be taking up hazardous vegetation assessments for fiscal year 23, that should be, not 22, as well as the committee is going to be taking up the fiscal year 2023 executive budget. The Housing Redevelopment and Community Programs Committee will meet at 12:20. They'll be taking up the appointments to the Public Art Committee, as well as appointments to the Affordable Housing Resident Oversight Committee, and Public Works and Mobility Committee will round out the day. They'll be meeting at 2:10 p.m. and they'll be taking up 3 items from the wastewater treatment plant. The first is a primary effluent pump upgrade. They have an agreement with Process Water Technologies for the Volute Press upgrade and a service agreement with 2G Energy for cogen maintenance out at the plant.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda were approved in city council committees to be placed on the consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda. We'll invite community comment on these items before we vote. Marty, if you could go through the consent agenda, please.
Sorry. All right, tonight's consent agenda has 15 items. Let's start. The first is to ratify accounts payable. That is the city council approving bills from checks dated August 2nd. That was last week, and they were in the amount of $3,197,483.30. And the second item is also to approve accounts payable in the amount of $1,025,099.24 for checks that are dated tomorrow, August 9th of 2022. Number 3 is to confirm the mayor's reappointment of Jonathan Gass to the Building Code Board of Appeals as a licensed engineer for a term that begins January 1st, 2022 and expires on June 30th of 2025. Number 4 is to confirm the mayor's appointment of Jennifer Clary to the Building Code Board of Appeals as an at-large member for a term that begins immediately and expires on June 30th of 2025. Number 5 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement amendment number 1 with IMEG for the East Front Water Main Replacement Project at a cost not to exceed $36,892.50. Number 6 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Wythe Engineering for the 5th Street Water Main Replacement Project and a water main replacement project at a cost not to exceed $109,404. Number 7, approve and authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement amendment number 1 with HDR Engineering for the Upper Prospect Tank Project at a cost not to exceed $49,420. Number 8 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign an agreement concerning the release and extinguishment of ditch easement rights with the Great Northern Medical Center Association and to accept funds of $10,022.30 for the easement. Number 9 is to set a public hearing on August 29th of 2022 on a resolution of the Missoula City Council levying and assessing a special assessment and tax on the lots, pieces, and parcels of land that are situated within all the special lighting districts in the city of Missoula, Montana, in the amount of $269,457 to defray the cost of street lighting and special improvement in special lighting districts during fiscal year 2023. Number 10 is to set a public hearing on August 29th, 2022 on resolutions setting the method of assessment and levying assessments to fund the work plans and budgets for Park District number 1, Road District number 1, and on resolutions levying assessments for the Tourism Business Improvement District and the Downtown Business Improvement District, all of those for fiscal year 2023. Number 11 is to appoint Ezra Williams to serve as alternate 2 on the Historic Preservation Commission with a term that begins immediately and ends on December 31st of 2023. Although a quorum wasn't present, number 12 is to reappoint Jeremy Flesch as a regular member and Chad Bauer as an alternate member to the Energy and Climate Team with terms that begin August 1st, 2022 and end on July 31st of 2025. Number 13 is to approve a construction contract with Western Excavating in the amount not to exceed $1,244,439 for reconstruction of the Playfair tennis courts. Number 14 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign these grants agreements with Truitt Consulting, Sci Designs, University of Montana, and Inverness Research for the National Institute of Health grant-funded project called The Link, a collective impact place-based approach to inspiring Montana's next generation healthcare workforce. And finally, number 15 is to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a development agreement and property management agreement with Blue Line Development for the Bridge Apartments.
Thank you, Marty. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda items? Let me check online. Oops, hang on a second. Okay, Mr. Hunt, you wanted to provide public comment on the consent agenda items. I think you can unmute yourself and speak.
Let's see. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, just with respect to the last one, number 15, the contract Blue Line. I'll just be brief. I don't think that's the appropriate way to handle it. I don't think that the city should be owner and landlord, and I don't think that there should be any more questionable inside deals with Blue Line Development, which has the inside track on so many things. I think it's wonderful, and you may recall Mr. Colino and I both appeared on NBC Montana urging that the city acquire the Bridge Apartments, and And I commend the city for doing that, as far as, taking care of the people who are most in need in the community. But I think this manner of dealing with it on a long-term basis is inappropriate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else wanting to provide public comment on the consent agenda? All right, any city councilor wanting to abstain or separate the question? Ms. Vasika.
I just have a comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
A couple of comments regarding what Mr. Hunt said regarding the short-term rentals. I just wanted to clarify that usually on Wednesdays there are it usually is an action item. So it was not an action item. That's why it's not on the consent agenda today. So I just want to clarify anything regarding that. And then regarding what Mr. Hunt just said about the bridge apartments. Yeah, I agree completely. When the bridge apartments first came up to city council, I disagreed with it. I voted against it. But now the city council, or I guess now the city does own that. And if we do not have somebody to, I guess, be the keeper of the bridge apartments, I guess, if we don't have anybody to provide those management services in the way that the city wants, then it'll cost the city even more money. So since I disagree with it in the past, just because I'm agreeing with it now doesn't mean that I agree with this project altogether, but I'm just hoping to find the fiscal to safeguard your taxpayer dollars as much as I can at this moment in time. So that's why I'm okay with this. And that's the end of my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Anyone else from council? Seeing none, Marty, could you do a roll call vote on the consent agenda, please?
Yes, on the consent agenda, Sarah,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
and West.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 10 ayes and 2 absent.
Thank you, Marty. We have no comments from city staff, city agencies, community forum, neighborhood councils, boards, commissions, or authorities. And we do not have any special presentations or proclamations tonight. We do have one item under final consideration. Items listed under final consideration have had a public hearing. The hearing was held open to allow time for additional public comment before final consideration and action by the council. The chairperson of the standing city council committee will make a motion, and we invite community comment on each item. So tonight under 8.1, we have an ordinance amending Title 5 City Business Licenses and Regulations regarding the cannabis industry. So first, let me go to staff to see if there is any supplemental information from staff for this final consideration. And
Cassie.
let me see if there's one from staff available.
Cassie Trepard, Planning Supervisor. There is no new information on this item. This is just for the ordinance, and the energy piece will be returning to LUP in the future.
Thank you. Were there any questions from council regarding this item under final consideration? Ms. Vasika.
Just clarify, I might have just missed it from what Cassie said. So all the concerns that we had when we were originally talking about the white paper, this is just allowing changes to be made, but it's not actually making the changes. Is that correct?
Yeah, this ordinance is primarily to create a new business license type for cannabis, a lot of which is to help us track these businesses, establish legal nonconformities, implement building code changes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, and just to add to that, the energy consumption issue is a separate issue that is more complicated that we're going to have to take some more time on. So we've carved it out. Okay, any other questions from council? And anyone raising their hands to? Okay, I'm not seeing any raised hands. Then we will go to Mr. Hess, Chair of Land Use and Planning, for the motion.
Thanks, Madam President. I move that on second and final reading, we adopt an ordinance generally amending Title V Missoula Municipal Code, the city business licenses and regulations ordinance to incorporate additional provisions within chapters 5.04 definitions and 5.08 licensing provisions generally, and creation of a new chapter 5.120 entitled Cannabis to incorporate regulations concerning legislative changes in the cannabis industry, reorganize definitions, and update outdated process language as referenced in attachment A in the proposed ordinance.
Thank you. And is there any public comment on this motion, which is in order? If anyone wants to come up and provide public comment, come up to the microphone. Anyone at home who is attending virtually, raise your hand if you want to provide public comment. Okay, seeing no raised hands, any comments from council? Ms. Vasika.
Thank you. I will be in support of this tonight. I did disagree. Let me get it pulled. I did disagree a lot with the regulations to limiting frosted windows and the buffer and home occupation, but I was met with some arguments against that, and I don't think I'm going to win that one. And I don't think that this is actually the ordinance regarding that, but I just wanted to bring that up, that I was against that. But I will be supporting this tonight just to get the process moving forward and allowing these businesses to be as thriveful as they would want to be. So that's why I'm going to be in support of them.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Thanks. I want to start by thanking and commending our staff for their research and their hard work to bring these together with this new emerging industry. And I really appreciate, if anyone hasn't reviewed the white paper from this winter, it's attached to the agenda tonight, but it's really informative about odor and air quality and our climate action goals and energy consumption and just a wide range of topics of potential concern with cannabis cultivation. When we undertook the zoning action, there was a lot of talk about how the voters of Missoula County overwhelmingly approved the legalization of adult use cannabis. And so our regulations should have a relatively light touch. I think that's what we did. And I think there's an opportunity to review those as part of the code reform process. But right now, this sort of ties up the pending work with by creating a business license type, and it's a relatively light touch again. So I think the intent was that hopefully reflected the will of the voters, that these establishments are welcome, and provides reasonable sideboards for them to exist in the community. Again, we may have to, I think we will have to revisit what that looks like as we near the 2023 horizon, where additional providers or additional businesses, might be a better term, are able to enter the market. So I'm supportive of this. Again, thanks to staff, and look forward to the continued discussion.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Anyone at home want to raise their hand and comment? Seeing no other comments from council, Marty, could you please do a roll call vote on this item?
Yes, just a moment. On the ordinance, Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
and Becerra.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 10 ayes and 2 absent.
Thank you. And that passes. Next, we have, that was the conclusion of our final consideration hearings. We are opening a public hearing and closing it tonight for the annual assessments for street maintenance district number 1 downtown. So Marty, if you would like to present on that under our regular public hearings, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we're voting on this tonight. Is that correct?
That is correct. Just a moment here, and I'll get over to my staff report information. I thought I had it up.
Thank you.
Here we go. Okay, council members, I'm just going to show the referral memo tonight. Many of you are aware that Street Maintenance District number 1 started out as sprinkling district in downtown Missoula. It was established in 1909. And originally it was used to sprinkle the streets as a dust mitigation measure. Now it is used for extra street cleaning by the City Streets Division and to pick up the garbage and recycling out of the trash cans that are located throughout the downtown area. The Street Division provides the street sweeping services. Downtown streets get swept on a much regular basis than the rest of the community. The Downtown Business Improvement District has a contract with the city for emptying those trash bins and recycling bins and recycling the things that people deposit in them on a regular basis. They contract with us to provide that service pretty frequently in the summer because it's doggone busy downtown. And a little bit less often in the winter, but they still do perform that service. The city levies a special tax because these are extra services that are performed in downtown Missoula that are not available in the rest of the community. And so this year, the assessments are proposed to be $135,733. That represents a 0.14 or less than 1% increase from last fiscal year. By law, the assessments must be completed by the second Monday in August. And so that means that we're requesting council to approve these assessments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. I will call for public comment on this item as we open this public hearing. Are there any comment from anyone in the audience or at home? Please raise your hand if you want to comment. Seeing none, any questions from council? Ms. Vasika.
Thanks, Marty. Just to be clear on this, all these taxes that are assessed from this location, are they they're voluntary from the business owners that choose to be in this location? Is that correct, or am I mistaking that with the Downtown Improvement District?
I think you might have it confused by the Downtown Improvement District. So this district has existed since 1909. There are, I'm going to guess, very few property owners in the downtown district that haven't paid this assessment as part of their regular tax bill since they've owned it, unless they bought their property before 1909. So this has existed in some form or fashion longer than most of us.
Okay, may I have a follow-up?
Go ahead.
Has there been anybody that has been delinquent in the past few years on this one, or has everybody been very, I guess, okay with paying this tax?
I don't have answers about the delinquency rate on this particular district. The finance office usually gets information about protested taxes. It's my guess that if folks are protesting tax bills, they probably protest the entire bill, not just this assessment. But I don't have that information at the ready tonight for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, and that was my mistake for not asking you ahead of time, so I apologize for that.
Any other questions from council? Oh, Ms. Cheryl,
Could I make a comment or do I need to wait?
just hang on. Sit tight. Okay, any other questions from council? Seeing none, we will have a motion from Mr. Hess.
Thank you. I move adoption of a resolution levying a special assessment and tax on the lots, pieces, and parcels of land situated within Street Maintenance District number 1 of the city of Missoula, Montana, generally located in the downtown area, in the amount of $135,733 for the for the purpose of defraying the cost of flushing and removing street rubbish from streets and avenues in the district during the fiscal year 2023.
Thank you. Any public comment on the motion that is on the floor and is now in order? Please raise your hand if you want to provide comment. Okay, seeing none, now we will go to council for comments. Ms. Cheryl.
I thought about trying to rephrase it as a question. I just wanted to say that I think the I think it's a 0.14% increase over the last fiscal year, which, considering what's happening with inflation, I think we should be really happy with that amount. So I'm happy to support it.
Any other comments from council? Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. Normally, I don't think I would support this one, but with the recent increase in a lot of houseless individuals on the streets of downtown, and there's been a lot of rubbish downtown because of that increase and influx of folks essentially living on the sidewalks. So I think that even though it is an increase, it's a minor increase, I do think that this would be beneficial for all of our taxpayers and the business owners in that area. So I'm reluctantly voting yes on this, but I don't think that I'm going to regret this vote. So yeah, I will support it tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? All right, and no raised hands from our virtual attendees who are counselors. Trying to remember you guys. Okay, seeing no other comments, we will take a roll call vote. Marty.
All righty. Contos,
Yes.
Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
and Carlino.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That's 10 ayes and 2 absent.
Thank you. And that passes. Under committee reports, just for clarification's sake, although the minutes are posted there from committee meetings, those are approved within the following committee the following week or two, whenever that comes next in front of the committee. We do have one item in front of the under committee reports, and that is resolution requesting Missoula County to refer a crisis services levy to Missoula County voters. We did hear this in committee, and there were quite a few people who presented on it and commented. At this point, are there any further questions from council? I'm not sure if we have staff available. We're a little bit after the fact, since I believe the county commissioners have already voted on this, and this is a resolution in support of that. But if there's any questions from council, we can try and get them answered. Seeing no questions from council, we will go to a motion, and Mr. Hess,
Thanks.
you're the man of the hour.
I move that we adopt a resolution requesting the Missoula County Commission adopt a resolution and referral to the people of Missoula County for authorization of a crisis services levy to pay costs of services to support people experiencing mental health, addiction, or housing crises, and to facilitate criminal justice reforms.
Thank you. We will go to public comment on the motion, and thank you for pulling that up, Marty. Okay, anyone in the chambers that wants to provide public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will go to our virtual attendees. Mr. Hunt, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Madam Council President. My name is Kevin Hunt. I reside in Ward 1 in the Rattlesnake. The first thing I want everyone to understand is I strongly support all of these crisis services, in particular, the mobile crisis unit, which has turned out to be a great success, and which is going to save the city a lot of money, actually. So I hope my remarks aren't construed as being in opposition to any of that. I believe that you should not be endorsing what the county commission is doing. I do not believe it's creative. And I think it's going to just add to another crisis that we have going in Missoula and Missoula County, which is the oppressive, non-progressive property tax rates, which are greatly stressing out and causing much housing insecurity for the elderly, the disabled, the retired, and other long-time and fixed income Missoula homeowners. And of course, these increases are always passed along to the renters in Missoula. And as I'm sure all of you know, 51% of our population rents. And I believe if I recall my data correctly, 2/3 of them are cost burdened, and 1/3 are struggling on less than $25,000 a year and cannot afford a dime more. So I think this is not a creative solution. There must be another means of doing this found. And whether you pass this resolution or not has no effect on whether the county commissioners actually place this on the ballot before the voters. You could simply be neutral. And that's what I ask that you do. My real concern is a conservative backlash that comes out of this and foments a movement for ballot measures to place Proposition 13 type caps and things like that. And I just think that this is not a wise decision for a variety of reasons, including those long-term reasons. I think that the county and the city needs to have a joint committee that explores and comes up with a more creative solution. I don't know if this is legal, but once if it's permissible as a local option sales tax, I'd like to see a 1% tax on all house sales in Missoula that are at or above a certain price point. That price point to be determined by local and national economic indicators. I'm tired of this non-progressive oppression of the working people of this town and the people who are barely making it. And it seems to be benefiting primarily the wealthy. It's time they paid their fair share. And I guess that's all I have to say. But again, I do support what this is for. I totally understand it. If people on the council that I very much respect go ahead and vote for it, I understand why. That's fine. But all I can say is let's just wait and see how that works out for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Any comments from council on this motion on the crisis services levy? Ms. West and then Mr. Nugent.
So I think when we have the opportunity to put something on a ballot and pose it or give our citizens the opportunity to vote, I think we should do that. I think it is a neutral position and that it allows everyone to engage on this subject. And it is obviously a very important subject that affects many people. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Mr. Nugent.
Thank you, Madam President. I think this is a very intensely personal issue for a lot of people in that almost everybody I've talked to about the issues of houselessness in Missoula have slightly different takes. A lot of them are nuanced. People are very passionate all across the board. And I agree. I think this is an opportunity for the community of Missoula to tell us if this is a priority or if it's not. And I think that as we've been hearing people talk about the need for this, there's a lot of good being done in programs that are currently funded by ARPA and other federal dollars that if we don't find a funding source, they will go away. And, I respect the public commenters' thoughts, but we as a council can't do funding mechanisms that aren't granted to us by state law. We do not have the option to do a local option sales tax. That is not something, a power given to a local government. That's something that we would need to take up with the state legislature. And frankly, the state constitution bans transfer taxes. That was a public amendment about 20 years ago. So I think that I understand the need for creativity, and I think that we all would agree with that. But as far as the creative ways that the city or the county can come up with to fund important programs, we really don't have any. Like we are very limited in what we can do, and we are very sensitive to the expense that the property tax can put on people. And that's why I think this all needs to be thought out. And I think it's important to go to the community and ask, is this a priority? You know, some of the programs that we talk about, the temporary safe outdoor space, almost 50% of the residents who have gone through the temporary safe outdoor space have either found permanent housing or have been reunited with family members that have been moved to housing that's not on the street or in a park or in a public domain somewhere. I mean, that's a success point. 1 out of every 2 that's making a difference in our community. The mobile support team, to me, is one of the best things this community's done in the last several years, responding to people in need and trying to take pressure off of both our police department and our fire department are huge positives. And over 65% of the people that program responds to are not houseless. They are average everyday residents who are struggling, and we've created a program that really makes a difference. The reality is that the city and the county, cities and counties across the country and across the state have been asked to fill the gaps in areas that the federal government has let us down and the state government has let us down. And I know people get sick of us bringing that up, but our realities don't change. Like this is the system we're in. This is where revenue that supports local government comes from. So that's what we have in front of us. If people really want to change it, they need to go to the state legislature, talk to their representatives, talk to other representatives from other communities and explain why this is important and why this stuff matters. I think how the residents of Missoula decide to pay their hard-earned tax dollars is an illustration of the community's priorities. The mayor likes to say that in when he's talking about the budget. And I think it's very true here too. And I think it's an opportunity for all of us to know where our community stands on this. And I fully support putting this out to the voters.
Thank you, Ms. Vasika.
Thanks. So I agree with a lot of what my colleagues on council have said, because these are really important programs. I do believe that. I know that a lot of my colleagues on council have seen what has gone in with our houseless folks. I'm just going to call out my ward mate, Kristen, because her and I have done a lot of these things together. We went to do the Reserve by Reserve Street Bridge cleanup together. We have toured the authorized camping site together. We have a lot of constituents that are facing houselessness. And I do agree with that these programs are necessary. I don't believe that putting this to the voters is the last. I think that putting this option to the voters is the last resort. And I don't think that we are actually at the last resort yet. I agree with the public commenter, Mr. Hunt, saying that this isn't very creative. I believe that we can actually find funding in our budget that would be important enough that we could switch some pet projects around and put those on the back burner and actually fund these programs. I do believe that if we were going to put everything that we thought was important to the voters, then I think we should put the budget for the voters and see what they thought was the most important part, or if this was important that we should be funding it with a levy. So I don't think that, I think that using ARPA funds for this at the beginning to have a one-time funding source for this was kind of a bait and switch for the constituents, saying these are great programs, look how great they are, and then taking them away because it was one-time funding for it, which I also believe that it was kind of inappropriate usage of ARPA funding in the beginning, because ARPA funding was basically for COVID, and this houselessness program problem has been going on for years and years and years. So with that, I cannot support adding an additional tax to our constituents, because with the supply chain issues increasing property taxes, increasing prices on groceries and gas. It's hard for everyone that's staying in their house, everyone that's renting. I can't support the resolution to support putting this on the ballot. So I will not be in favor of this.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Ms. Jordan and then to Mr. Hess.
Thank you. I think everyone knows that this is a really important service to me. I played a key role in organizing the initial funding for the mobile crisis team. I played a key role in setting up all the metrics to ensure that this was a bang for buck program. I really enjoyed getting to know folks from the police department and the fire department when we set this program up. I agree with a lot of what's been said. I don't think that this is creative funding, and I think that democracy covers a lot of different things and not just this budget. I am pro-police. However, when we get a budget from them that includes a $400,000 other category that can't be broken down, I find myself really frustrated that we have this bang for buck program that everybody loves, that is saving us a ton of money. Seeing them come ask for alternative funding sources is really frustrating to me. The science is behind this program. It deserves to be hard funded. And I think that this is another case to be made for zero balanced budgeting. And for all of our staff and elected folks who are listening to this, I support the work. I just think that we need to do things a little differently to make sure that these amazing programs like this don't have to ask for money like this. I'm disappointed. I'm going to vote for this because I support the program and I support our county commissioners. But we do have to get more creative about where we find money to pay for programs that are proven effective. And that's the end of my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Thanks. This issue highlights the dysfunction of our tax code in the state of Montana. Some of our comments that we've heard from council and members of the public really highlights that we are working on a tax with a tax code that was developed decades ago for an economy that doesn't exist anymore. And it's really like Mr. Nugent said, we continue to say it and it continues to be true. And so we have to continue to say it. And I think we are given lots of opportunities to talk about how dysfunctional and regressive our property tax-based system is in the state of Montana. Unfortunately, it's what we've got. So I'm gonna support and also I in general, I support putting things out to the voters, and that's what we're doing here. We're asking the voters if they value these programs. And these programs came about largely as a function of some of the challenges that were exacerbated during the pandemic, and were funded with pandemic relief money. As many people have said, we've come to see how critical these programs are to our community, and I hope that we're able to sustain them. I do want to say that I think the executive budget, as a function of the mayor and the chief administrative officer and the department heads, is an exercise in creative thinking. It is an exercise that is many months in development, and I sometimes bristle that the idea that we need to think creatively is a euphemism for cutting something. And I mean, we hear pet projects as a term that's thrown around. And to me, police and parks and streets and the nuts and bolts of government are not pet projects. I believe that the city of Missoula operates efficiently, that it operates effectively, and that it operates on a lean margin. And I believe that we are working in a dysfunctional revenue environment in the state of Montana, and that's why we're in this position. I don't think it has anything to do with a lack of creative thinking. So I'm happy to support this, and I am also troubled that we have to go this route in order to sustain these important programs, but it's the reality we have.
Thank you. Down at this end. All right. We'll go with Ms. Cheryl and then Ms. Vasika.
Yeah, thanks. And I appreciate all of my colleagues' comments. I think that it's an important issue, and I'm glad that everyone is thinking it through. And I'm happy that we have the opportunity as City Council to weigh in on this, even though the county commissioners have already voted to put it on the ballot. Unfortunately, COVID exacerbated a problem that was already happening. During COVID, there were some estimates. I remember reading an article saying that they anticipated up to a 40% increase in our homelessness around the country. I mean, 40%. I remember years ago reading an article that LA had a 14% increase in their homelessness population, and they were in an absolute panic. They were seeing diseases coming back that they hadn't seen for a long time because of the sanitation in some of the homeless camps. And that is not any way for any human being to have to live. And so I generally support these programs for the dignity of humans. The ARPA funds gave us an opportunity. I respectfully disagree with my colleague. Those were really important use of our ARPA funds, and I'm thrilled that we had that opportunity to invest in some of this problem, and also to have some time to really get that mobile support unit up and running and see that it's a successful program. I am thrilled to be investing more money in that in the coming years. So, I think that this is again, one of the things that is said regularly about the budget is that it does show our values. And I think that voting to let the voters decide shows our values, that we value the voters' opinion, number one, and that it's something that's important for our community. So I am happy to support it. I appreciate everyone's comments. And we'll look forward to seeing what happens in November.
Ms. Vasika.
Thank you. And Ms. Cheryl, I am happy that we have a lot of folks on council that disagree, because that's where discussions and policy is made. So I'm happy that we can have a great discussion about this. And Mr. Hess, I apologize for making a euphemism. I should have been more blunt. I do think that we should put things on the back burner and not fund them, and fund this instead. So I just wanted to be clear on that, and that I do think that this is more important than other things in the budget.
All right, seeing no other council comment, I will just weigh in briefly, and I will say that my perspective is, if we had other tools to use to fund these necessary programs, we'd be using them. I think we're a chronically underfunded city, as cities are across Montana. As Mr. Hess referenced, we have a very dysfunctional, broken taxation system that needs attention. And we're going to have a very difficult budget session in the next couple of weeks as we do our budget. And my understanding is great majority of other cities across Montana are in the same situation as us, at the same time as there is a huge surplus at the state level. So I'm hoping there are more discussions regarding how to approach our revenue in Missoula and in cities across Montana, because I would love to have more revenue. My impression of our city is that a huge amount of work and effort goes in to stretch our budget to provide the level of services that are expected in this community. And it's very difficult and challenging and stressful, frankly, but the city makes it work because these are the resources we have. To me, being creative means having revenue sources that come from different pockets than from property taxes here in Missoula, because I don't care what label you put on it. If everything's coming from the same pocket, there is a huge amount of stress there on property tax payers, be they renters or property owners. And it's not a good sustainable situation. So for years I've been saying we need tax reform, and I really, really mean it. And I hope that we get it eventually. And when I say that we're underfunded, I would love to have more money to put towards affordable housing, to put towards Missoula aging services, to put towards parks, creating more programs with other elementary schools as they have with Lowell Elementary School. So I would love to have those resources. And in terms of being creative, I think that means having other sources of revenue and a more diverse tax base so that we don't tap out the same people all the time, because that's what's happening and we don't have any other tools. So I don't think it's a lack of creativity. I think it's being hemmed in by the laws that govern us. And I can guarantee you other municipalities in Montana feel the same way. So my 2 cents, and I'm always happy to come talk to the legislature about my point of view. I have in the past. They don't seem too interested in me, but I will continue to knock on that door. I see no other council comment, so we will go to a roll call vote on this, Marty.
All right. On the resolution, Hess,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
No.
West,
Yes.
Becerra,
Yes.
Carlino,
Yes.
Contos.
No.
All right, would any of you like to change your vote? That is 8 ayes and 2 nays and 2 absent.
Thank you. That passes. And item number 11 on our agenda is new business. I'm not aware of any new business. Communications from the mayor. Since I'm in that spot tonight, I will just say that I know there are a lot of people mourning the passing of Vin Scully, who was the announcer for the LA Dodgers for many, many, many years. And go Dodgers. So anyway, it's an institution, and it's been a major event to see Mr. Scully's memorials. All right, we'll go to general comments of city council members, and I will start with Ms. Vasika.
Thank you. And first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for indulging me in my many comments tonight. Thank you about that. For everybody else in the public and in council and everyone that's thinking about coming to the Missoula County Fair, I would highly recommend people to go to the local vendors that are there, support local businesses, even outside of the fair. Even if you can just buy local for eggs or meat or chickens or anything like that. I know it's a little bit more expensive, but usually the quality is better and you are helping out your neighbors. And I know that everyone's struggling at the moment, but every little dollar that you put into supporting a local business does help that local business. So I'd highly recommend buying local. And I hope that you all have a really good time at the fair this week, and it's going to be really hot. So wear your sunscreen.
Ms. Cheryl?
Thanks. And first wanted to thank City Club for a really kind of exciting debate earlier. If you didn't see that, I think they've recorded it on MCAT. It was Monica Tranell, Ryan Zinke, and I'm sorry, I don't remember his first name, but Mr. Lamb, and they debated at City Club. It was really interesting. And I kept raising my hand because I got to be the question asker for my table, but they never called on me. So I'm going to talk about my question here, even though I don't get to watch them debate it, which would have been interesting. So, we talk a lot about labor shortages, and we know that this is a huge issue for businesses locally and nationally. This means we don't have childcare workers, camp counselors, servers in restaurants, farm workers, grocery store stockers, factory workers, you name it. Additionally, a big question that is on a lot of our electeds' mind nationally is how to dampen inflation without triggering a recession. And in this situation, a simple way to do that would be to increase your supply of labor. There are currently 2 job openings for every 1 job seeker in America. Part of this is due to the great resignation of baby boomers. Part is because we had 250,000 working age people in our country die of COVID. And also part of it is due to the lack of childcare. But a less known piece of the labor shortage is how even before COVID, the change in the immigration policies under Donald Trump's restrictive visa policy specifically played a role. even though this has bounced back a little bit under the current administration, UC researchers estimate that the Trump years left us with a labor shortage of 1.6 million foreign-born workers. So, so basically, instead of migrants taking our jobs, which is what we hear, bringing in more refugees and migrant workers to ease the labor shortage would help not only to slow down inflation, but also to build up our economy. So I've been reading a lot about this. I really wanted to ask the candidates today, had they thought about that? Had they thought about immigration policies or incentives for immigration? I think it's just important. I know we're not voting on that on city council, but I think it's interesting just to consider our immigration policies in the future, if we welcome refugees to our community, and also as we vote for candidates that understand the interplay of economics and immigration policies.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
I'll pass tonight. Thanks.
Mr. Nugent.
Thank you. I just want to make one comment about TIF based on kind of earlier comments. I think it's important to kind of point out that how TIF works is money is given in hopes of recouping that money as an investment and creating more tax on a property to fund other projects in the district. So the district can't be all public projects that do not generate any tax revenue. It needs to have a balance. And so sometimes I think that in the conversation that gets lost, and I'm all for talking more about how the MRA board determines projects and things like that. But I think that is important to point that out when we have comments on that, that the only way that works is if there are projects in the district that are creating more tax property tax increase than they were to begin with, because that funds the projects.
Thank you, Mr. Contos.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Ms. West.
I just, excuse me, I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow is the cutoff to get discounts on the carnival tickets for the fair. So if you want to get a week-long pass or day passes, you can get them later too, but they're slightly cheaper until tomorrow. The fair office closes at 4:30. And I also just briefly wanted to talk about my ward mate, Jennifer Savage. She was entirely open about having a short-term rental when she was running for office. It hasn't been anything that she has, I guess, hidden throughout her time here in Missoula. And I actually really appreciated her comments on Wednesday because rather than saying not to raise the fees, she pointed out that there are additional fees that are outside of the discussion we were having that are also included when folks register short-term rentals, which I had forgotten, even though I was around, as were some of us, when we crafted the short-term rental ordinance. And I forgot that there were additional health department fees that are actually far more than ours. So I thought it was helpful information and added to the discussion. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carlino.
Thanks. Yeah, I was lucky enough to get to watch some of the congressional debate here in Missoula on YouTube today too. And I thought it was interesting. Monica Trinnell talked about also trying to take on short-term rentals as an issue with our housing crisis. She said she has heard a lot about that from constituents throughout Western Montana. And I just think that's something interesting for us to think about as we just got the study back. And as we're trying to take on our housing crisis in Missoula, we're asking our neighbors to accommodate a lot of growth around town. And I just think it's really fair to make sure that that growth is going to be for homes that help alleviate our housing crisis and not residential hotels. So I hope we can keep thinking about that and not brush this issue under the rug of vacation rentals taking over residential homes.
Ms. Jordan?
I'll pass. Thank you.
And Ms. Becerra?
Pass. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have no miscellaneous communications, reports, or announcements. So we will stand adjourned, and thank you for your service.